Welcome to week 4 of the advanced full distance training plan from scientifictriathlon.com. This week is the first real training week, you might want to call it, since we had the testing week last week, and now we're getting stuck in with proper training, and we're upping the volume to 14 hours, but depending on whether you do the optional workouts and how you might extend or shorten the time variable workouts, you might end up from anywhere from between 12 hours 55 minutes to 15 hours 30 minutes. So that's the range we're talking about. And the focus this week and for the weeks to follow is on aerobic capacity, or VO2 max, which is your maximal oxygen uptake. This is the number one predictor of performance in endurance sports. It's super important, but there are a lot of misconceptions around it, so let's tackle a few of them. First, it's common to think that the only way to improve it is through a lot of really, really high intensity. And also it's common to believe that it is limited very strongly by genetics. And both of them are not really true. First of all, genetics will be a limiter at some point, but for most of us, we're nowhere near our genetic capacity. So that's not really an issue for most of us. And secondly, in terms of the intensity, yes, the intensity is an important component, but you don't necessarily need to have intensity at all. The most important way to, or best way to improve aerobic capacity is just through good, consistent volume over weeks and over months and over years of training. So that's something that we have throughout this plan. We have good training volume, and of course we have some easier weeks or easier periods, but by and large, the volume is up there. So you will be able to work on that aerobic capacity throughout the entire plan, even in blocks that aren't specifically designed for that. That being said, we do have intensity in this particular block. And when we're talking about intensity for aerobic capacity, a third misconception is that you have to turn yourself inside and out, go really, really hard to be able to get something out of those sessions or get the most out of the sessions. And that's not necessarily true. There's actually research showing that as long as you're above critical power, by some margin, of course, like it can't be 1 watt above critical power and expect it to be the same, but let's say you're 10 watts above critical power, then you can kind of get the same effects as if you're at a much higher intensity. And what ends up being perhaps the most important is how much time you're spending there, and so to say, collecting minutes at above threshold. And that is why the workouts in this plan are designed the way they are. That is the rationale behind it. So, and also one thing that is really important for me as a coach to convey is that you do not have to absolutely turn yourself inside out and go to puke speed in these intervals. The workouts should be hard, really hard actually, but they shouldn't be all out. You should always end the workout feeling that you had at least 1 rep left in the tank. So in this bike example workout, for example, 6 times 3 minutes at 105 to 110% of FTP. When you get to the end of it, if you feel that, yeah, I could probably do 1 more interval, then that's a session well executed. Your pacing was on point. You probably had slept well and fueled well leading into it as well. But also if you get to the end of that workout feeling that, oh, I could easily have done 3 more or 4 more of those intervals, then maybe for you might be a bit of an outlier, and you might want to increase the intensity a bit so you feel more like you could do 1 or 2 more reps rather than 3 or 4 more reps, because then it might just be a little bit too easy. Basically, the session RPE that we're looking for in these interval workouts is around an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. And that goes for across the board for swimming, biking, and running. So in cycling, I already showed you we had 105 to 110% as a guideline, which is clearly above critical power or threshold, but it's also not crazy high. So you will be able to get through it without it being an absolute nightmare. And on the bike, I have prescribed them at 10k pace, and that is because most users of this plan will be athletes that can run 10k in, let's say, 45 minutes or faster, even 40 minutes or faster. But that being said, if you're somebody who is slower than 45 minutes for the 10k, then maybe for you it might be better to focus on 5k race pace instead of 10k race pace, because basically the same principle applies. You want to be a fair bit above threshold, not crazy above threshold. Like that's why I prescribe this at 10K race pace, but not mile race pace or 3K race pace. But yeah, if you are a slightly slower runner, then maybe in that case, it makes sense to go to 5K race pace. And yeah, same principle here. We're building more of a pyramid for running because it's just sometimes harder to work into these workouts. So that's why it's good to start with a 1 minute repetition and then build up gradually. But you're getting all the way to a 4 minute repetition here. So a good solid workout for a first run interval workout of the plan. On the swim, we take a slightly different approach in that most triathletes really have their form fall apart after, let's say, 75 meters of really hard swimming. So we're doing 50s here, at least to start with, at your best average effort. And this means that the intensity will be actually quite high, relatively speaking, a lot higher intensity on the swim compared to the bike and the run intervals we're doing, just because the distance is shorter. But that means that you can do, with the recovery, you can probably do all of these reps and still hold a decent form, and even though the intensity is high. So that is the rationale for doing 50s on the swim rather than longer intervals, which I described earlier is maybe slightly preferable to doing shorter intervals in general. And then in terms of the endurance workouts, we're just looking for stable and consistent, staying in zone 2. There's no need to push to the upper end of zone 2 unless specified. There are a couple of workouts where that is specified, like in the LT1 swim on the Monday and the LT1 bike on the Thursday. But on the swim, I should say that, so we're looking for a steady aerobic effort with an RPE of 4 to 5 out of 10. Basically, it should feel similar to what it feels like to be at a high zone 2 effort when you're running or cycling. And it's quite common to start these swims too fast or these sets too fast. So avoid that mistake. It's better to maybe start a bit easier and then work yourself into it. On the bike, for the LT1 bike, I should say that you have a couple of blocks with low cadence, 60 to 70 RPM. If you are somebody who suffers from things like arthritis or something, then maybe it doesn't. Then you can skip the low cadence, basically, if you know that low cadence seems to be an issue for you. Likewise, if you're very used to doing quite a bit of low cadence work, then feel free to lower the rep range here to 50 to 60 RPM, or even 40 to 50 RPM is possible. Then, so basically the weekly structure here is that each discipline has one intense interval workout and one long workout per week. And then there's to get more frequency, we have the additional easier workouts or shorter workouts as well around that to get good frequency and total volume. But on the swim, you have your longer Monday swim and your interval Wednesday swim. And on the bike, you have your intervals on Tuesday and your long ride on Saturday. And on the run, you have your long run on Wednesday. But also Sunday is kind of a long run because it's a double day. So you're supposed to do the intervals as the first workout in the morning, and then in the afternoon or the evening do another easy run. So actually you'll end up with 1 hour 45 minutes for the day. And yeah, the bike, the long bike ride, I want to mention that this is a great one to do outdoors because you don't lock yourself into this workout structure here. As I explained in the description, the main thing here really is to get 3 hours of riding at around kind of a mid to high zone 2 normalized power range or intensity factor. And it would be great to get in 3 times 10 minutes or 2 times 15 minutes or something like that of zone 3 work as prescribed here. But probably if riding outdoors, you'll anyway get a fair amount of zone 3 work in naturally. So if it's not that, coherent or in specific intervals, then that's also not the end of the world. So it can be a rather unstructured ride in a way. But try to adhere to the principles that I explained there, with just mostly just good zone 2 work, some low zone 2, some high, some mid, and then a bit of zone 3 work in there as well. And let me see here if there's another workout that I'll highlight. Yes, so the Friday swim has a threshold set as the optional add-on, 800 meters or yards of add-on swimming. And this is something we'll see. It's most of the swims coming up in the program will have some sort of threshold focus in the additional optional add-on set, because that is just very good for all triathletes of all distances, and for Ironman no less, to work on that threshold. So that's what we have there. And other than that, I don't think there's much to say about the particular workouts. Really, just looking through my notes here. No, I'm good, I think. Just a note that as volume and intensity is increasing, focus on the two things besides training that will make the biggest difference in how you adapt to training. Those are sleep and nutrition. And in terms of sleep, you should get at the very least 7 hours of sleep per night, but 8 would be better. 9 would be awesome. And for some people, it might be necessary because we have slightly different sleep requirements, but anybody needs 7 hours. And then nutrition applies to both nutrition, just getting frequent meals, good quality, home-cooked meals, trying to not have too much processed food, but not just eating all the macronutrients, not limiting anything, getting your fruit, getting your veggies, and so on. Getting your carbs is important, getting your protein as well, and eating, refueling after workouts as well, trying to do that quite quickly. And in workout fueling, when you're in a longer workout or a more intense workout, having energy with you so that you can fuel that effort. And especially something like the Saturday ride, of course, which is long, you will need to take on fuel, because otherwise, yes, of course, you will get through the workout. I know that anybody using this plan is capable of doing a 3-hour ride without fueling. That's not really a big deal, but the thing is that then you have to back that up with intervals the next day, and knowing the glycogen resynthesis process and how slow that is, it's just not possible to consistently train well if you're not fueling your workouts properly, as well as fueling between workouts properly. So sleep, nutrition, super important. All right, have a good week and talk to you next week.